We finally got a debate last night. Did you see this? In the 3rd District of Kansas, Sharice Davids, of course, is your incumbent congresswoman if you are on the Kansas side of the state line, and she's going up against Dr. Prasanth Reddy. And the two of them got up there last night and held a debate that was put on by Kansas City PBS, our buddy Nick Haynes, and also you had KCUR and the Johnson County Post putting this thing together. Now, I watched the entire debate. I thought Dr. Reddy, the Republican, won the debate, but it's not hard to win a debate against Sharice Davids. I say that with all due respect, but it's just not difficult to do. It's not something she's good at. It's why she rarely debates her opponents. She's done one a cycle, maybe two a cycle, usually small audiences. Like, we'll play clips from this thing tonight tonight. It's dark outside, so I'm feeling like it's nighttime this morning, and you will probably get more of it today when it comes to the highlights and the lowlights than you'll get in other media outlets in and around Kansas City. And I think it's important to hear what these two folks have to say. Now, Sharice Davids is a heavy favorite to win re-election. Let's just start there. After Sharice Davids beat Amanda Atkins by 12 points 2 years ago, Dr. Reddy would have to pull off not a miracle, but he would have to have an incredible groundswell of support from low propensity voters who finally wake up and say, you know what, we are done with the party that has driven our inflation over the last 3 years. We are not doing it anymore. I don't know if that can happen for him, but he won last night. There were missed opportunities. I will say this much. He missed some opportunities, but he certainly took care of business against Sharice Davids. The first thing that was talked about last night was prices, right? And this is a place where Dr. Reddy should be able to wipe the floor with Sharice Davids. Any Republican should be able to wipe the floor with any Democrat when debating prices, when debating the economy, and obviously inflation. Dr. Reddy was asked first about lowering prices, and here's what he said.
Can you give us one specific policy you would support in the upcoming Congress that would lower the bills of your constituents in the 3rd District?
You have 60 seconds.
Thank you, Kyle. So that's easy. I'm a Harvard Business School grad, and I've had over 15 years of experience in small business and larger business managing budgets. So I know a little bit about this topic. And so what I'll tell you is that we got to control the source of inflation, and that initially starts with spending. So when we look at the Inflation Reduction Act, it's done nothing but generate tremendous amounts of inflationary pressure. In fact, we're talking about an extra $1,000 a month of extra inflationary cost that's hitting the voters of Kansas, and including this 3rd District. So the first thing we got to do is cut spending. And so separate from that, we got to think of other policies, for example, like energy policy. Right now, I'm for unlocking American energy independence. If we don't do that, we're going to create a situation where it's impossible to, bring in goods into this country, and that is certainly also contributing to this record inflation that we're still seeing today.
So that's a good answer by Prasanth Reddy. I have no problem with that. He's right to note that the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act increased federal spending by more than $3 trillion. They caused inflation directly. And then you say Sharice Davids, along with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, were all in lockstep on both of these bills, and they skyrocketed your prices. You got to tie it back to her there at the very end. That's what you have to do. You have to put her right in the hot seat and say, my opponent helped increase your prices at the grocery store and everywhere else in your life by going along with these two bills in particular, the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act. That's case number one that has to be made. Because any Democrat who voted for both of those bills doesn't really have a leg to stand on when they say, oh, shucks, yeah, your prices are pretty high. That stinks. But that's more or less what Sharice Davids did.
Thank you very much. Sharice Davids.
Thank you. I'm glad we're talking about this. This is one of the things that I hear from folks about a lot, that,
Yeah.
People like my mom who are on a fixed income. She just retired not that long ago. She raised me and my brothers by herself. And I know that anxiety and fear about whether or not you're going to be able to afford your groceries or utilities every month is real. It's why I was actually proud to support legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act that brought down prescription drug costs for almost 74,000 Kansans are seeing savings of almost 80% because we finally got Medicare the right to negotiate these prescription drug costs. It's concerning to me that my opponent has called that unconscionable. And by the way, the Inflation Reduction Act also made a $179 billion payment down on the national debt, something that saves us millions of dollars a month.
Wait. Did I hear that right? The Inflation Reduction Act paid down debt. The Inflation Reduction Act is debt. That's what it is. Between that and the American Rescue Plan, we tacked on $3 trillion in debt. And now I'm supposed to look at the Inflation Reduction Act through the prism of it actually helped reduce our prices and reduce our debt? What planet could you be living on to come to that conclusion? My goodness. And I know it always ties back to like pharmaceutical prices and drug prices and this, that, the next thing. The reality is this, and this is the easy rebuttal. It's debatable whether or not drug prices came down courtesy of the Inflation Reduction Act. But guess what? People wouldn't have to potentially get their prices reduced for drugs if they could afford things like they did 4 years ago. That's the easy rebuttal on that front to Sharice Davids. But my goodness, you wonder why they hide her. With all due respect, you wonder why they hide her, and then you hear answers like that. It's like, come on. And the rebuttals on these things left something to be desired. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Dr. Reddy, our rules allow you to have 30 seconds to rebut. Would you like that time?
I would love it, Nick. I would love it. So, to my opponent, what I would say is that, the Inflation Reduction Act is a measure of living 100% with the Biden-Harris agenda. So when I see that, I worry about the implications to voters in our district. And I can tell you for a fact that, on the false and misleading ads that are out there, I'll ask my opponent, name one pharmaceutical company that's given me a cent.
Okay, so he chose that spot to defend himself. But this issue has to be about Sharice Davids and her votes with Biden and Harris. And playing defense on the back end, I don't believe is the play in that spot because this is the issue, one of the strongest issues for Republicans, and I didn't think choosing to play defense there was the play. But either way, he got his point across loud and clear, and for the most part, it was a good one. And here's what Sharice Davids said to that.
You have 30 seconds to rebut Sharice Davids.
Yeah, look, I want to make sure that everybody knows what my record is. I'm the only person in this race who has actually voted to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. I can tell you Kansans would rather get...
well, hold on. The only person in the race? You're the only one in Congress. What?
Yeah.
I'm the only person in the race who's voted on... Well, yeah, you're the only one who can vote. Like, what? What kind of answer is that, for crying out loud? Man, I'm like, did I hear that right? So I went back and I listened to it again, and I'm like, wait, she just said I'm the only one in this race who's voted on. Yeah, that's the point. I'll do my Biden whisper. You're the only one in Congress, man.
Energy from the Kansas wind with all our wind potential, then get Saudi oil. And I'm going to keep pushing for policies that are going to make sure that we're not just producing our own energy here at home, but also saving people money when it comes to their prescription drugs.
Okay. Always about the prescription drugs, isn't it? So I thought it was interesting, too, when she said, I think Kansans would pick the Kansas wind over the Saudi oil. Well, that's a false premise. No one wants Saudi oil. Nobody. What people want is American oil. Drill, baby, drill. And there is one political party that has tried to hamstring American oil. And it's not Prasanth Reddy's party. It is Sharice Davids' party. The choices are not Saudi oil versus Kansas wind. The choices are American oil versus everything else. And when you stack them up, that is the very obvious answer. So Prasanth Reddy had himself a pretty good night. He's got a major uphill battle. It's not going to be easy. A lot of people are, unfortunately, probably not going to see that, but they really need to go watch it, and we'll have more of it this morning on KCMO.
I'm looking for the futures on a barrel of wind here, domestic, not the import. I'm not finding it.
Well, considering we don't know if it's going to rain next week, I don't know how you're going to, get a future on the wind plans for 2 weeks from now. But we'll see. We'll keep on that this morning, John. Let me know what you find. It's like Mark digging up his parlay for buy, sell, hold coming up at 8:45. 913-408-7957. Sharice Davids is in a very good spot. There's no doubt about it. But the more that 3rd District voters hear from her, frankly, the more underwhelmed they should be by their congressional representative. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. A big weekend ahead. Early voting continues on. I did it yesterday as well. We'll get to that more here on KCMO. Got out there and voted yesterday. We had to run to Home Depot, get a new propane tank. So on the way home, I said, why don't we all just head on in and vote and just get it over with and early vote for the first time in my life. So we did that yesterday, and it was very smooth. Walked right in, no issues. It was about 4:50 in the afternoon yesterday. Had the whole crew with us, all 3 kids, and took all of 5 minutes. They even had an opportunity for the girls to vote. Do you see this, Mark? Did you vote already?
I didn't vote yet, but I did talk with Ray about this a couple days ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you know about this then? Did you see a
I saw
story?
an article on KCTV5 about it.
Oh, okay. Very cool. So the girls get in there, and the older 2, of course, were very into it. This guy's like, hey, girls, you want to vote? They're like, sure. So I guess what they had the kids do while we were voting as adults is they took them over to a little fake ballot area, and they got to vote for a food. So one of my girls voted for mac and cheese, and the other voted for tacos. I don't know what else was on the list, so I can't say if I'm disappointed or proud of their vote, but they voted for food.
From what I heard, they could also vote on their favorite sports team like Royals, Chiefs, Sporting KC.
Oh, is that
like
right?
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I finished up my ballot, and then I went over and I said, what are you girls voting for? And then the guy who was running the ballot drop box or whatever you want to call it. It's not an official drop box, okay? Don't start freaking out when tacos beat out Sharice Davids in the 3rd District coming up here in 10 days, which at this point I might take a taco over Sharice Davids. But they were voting on food. So one of the kids picked mac and cheese, the other one picked tacos, and I was picking Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and Prasanth Reddy and Doug Bedford and everybody else on the list. But it could not have been easier. So I put my money where my mouth is. I voted early for the first time ever. I saw a lot of people pouring in after 5 o'clock. If I was just eyeballing the folks coming in, which way they were going to vote, I would probably say they'd vote differently than me. That's their prerogative. And that's why you need to get out there and you need to go vote and vote early. And by the way, the reason you do that is because it frees up resources for county parties, for candidates to say, okay, we're not going to bother this person. They voted already. And money is a zero-sum game. If they waste money on you when they know that you're going to vote and how you're going to vote, that money could be deployed to somebody who might be on the fence, who might be a swing voter. So that's why voting early actually helps the candidate that you want to win. So get out there, go do it. And there are plenty of locations all around Johnson County and obviously all around the entire metro that you can get out there and you can go early vote. So do it if you haven't done it. Couldn't be easier. And it's, 11 days away from Election Day. Now, there is a big event happening coming up this weekend on the national scene. What you've got is Donald Trump going to Madison Square Garden. And already, can you believe it? I guess you probably can, based on how this last couple of day news cycle has gone. You've got Hillary Clinton talking about Donald Trump doing this big rally Sunday night at Madison Square Garden. And Trump is doing it for the pomp and circumstance and nothing more. That's the whole purpose of doing an event like this. But look at how this thing is going to get spun. Hillary Clinton was on TV last night on CNN, And she gave you the insight onto what the weekend and the Monday after is going to look like from a media perspective.
And, one other thing that you'll see next week, Caitlin, is Trump actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939. I write about this in my book. President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany. So I don't think we can ignore it.
They're going there. They're going there. Donald Trump doing a rally at MSG, the world's most famous arena, coming up on Sunday night in his hometown. They are hearkening back to February 20th of 1939, when there was a Nazi rally at the Garden. They're there, John. That's what they're doing, brother.
As full of blank as a Christmas goose, Pete. As full of blank as a Christmas goose. What would that clue be? Survey says?
Yeah. I'm not going to say it.
No, I understand.
I don't want to get in trouble. Mark doesn't want to hit the dump button at 6:26 this morning.
That was a fairly easy one.
Yes, it was. This is what they're doing.
Even in Christmas.
They are hearkening back to 85 years ago. It's amazing. You think about all the events that have happened in that arena, right? Sporting events, cultural events, concerts, and of course, Donald Trump doing a rally in his hometown, in a place where the media has to talk about him because he's right in their backyard. And that's the point of this. The point of this is to be right in the epicenter of the global media. With 9 days to go before the election, have 20,000 people packed to the rafters at MSG. And the media has to talk about Donald Trump filling up the world's most famous arena in one of the bluest cities in the country. So what do? What is their response? Well, obviously, this is a Nazi event. Now, it's amazing because Donald Trump is polling better with minorities than he ever has. We talked about that yesterday. New numbers showing that at least 1 in 4 young black men are going to vote for Donald Trump. Latino men are up to 44%, basically 1 in 2, up from 35% 4 years ago. The Jewish vote has moved in his favor in the wake of what's gone on between Israel and Hamas. But somehow, this is nothing but a Nazi rally 85 years after the most famous Nazi rally happened in this country. Got it. Definitely no desperation there. Everything's going fine and according to plan. Please. News in 2 minutes. We're back with fights breaking out in schools in our backyard next. What is going on in our schools? I saw this story this morning on Fox 4's website. Wyandotte High School teacher hurt in fight between students. And I thought to myself, man, you can't teach decent parenting. You just can't do it. So you've got a KCK public school teacher who was assaulted in the classroom. Now they're on part-time medical leave and they're talking to the media, claiming the school district is not doing enough to solve a significant problem. Mm-hmm. Good. This is just like the crime issue in Kansas City. People have to start speaking out, John.
I'm with you there, but the pronouns confused me at the beginning of the story there because I thought it was multiple teachers, but it's not.
It's not.
The way it was written. So I was confused, but I got it all sorted out. One teacher, but we had several students. She got right in the middle of it, apparently.
Oh, I know.
Or maybe I'm wondering if they didn't try to get her into the middle of it.
Yeah.
One of these weird things.
You've got this teacher.
It was a convoluted story anyway.
Yeah, it is. Either way, you got a bunch of kids acting like hooligans. Mm-hmm. That's the point.
Yep.
And somehow a teacher's trying to do the right thing, right? Break them up. And she gets clocked.
Yeah.
And now she's on part-time medical leave. Do you have that clip there, Mark, in the audio cuts folder that I just put in? That's what I just mentioned. Grab that clip, please. It's from Fox 4. And you will be able to hear from the teacher and what she had to say.
Reality in Wyandotte County schools?
I don't want to say it is, but it is. We have fights frequently.
A Kansas City, Kansas public school teacher tonight assaulted in the classroom on part-time medical leave.
hitting me, and then the other one is trying to hit the girl that's in front of me. So I get my kid close to the door, and I'm about to open it, and I hear, "You and I'm like, oh no.
The girl she told to leave her class that Octopus says shouldn't have been in there from the beginning. Well, in the video, you can see that young lady starts swinging. From there, it's all a blur before another fight breaks out in the classroom just minutes later. We reached out to Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools asking a series of questions, including if charges would be filed. The district says we can confirm that an incident occurred at Wyandotte High School. This is a student and employee matter, and we have no further comments.
Nobody should have to fight. Nobody.
Well, guess what? The school should have further comment, and the school should start talking more about this, and teachers have to start speaking out, talking to the media, because we don't know about this stuff unless you tell us about it, right? I want to report on this. If we've got teachers and parents who want to call us up, who have kids or grandkids in the Wyandotte County school systems or anywhere where fights are happening more than they used to have, we'll hear your story at 913-408-7957. You call up, we'll put you on the air right now to figure out and get a sense for how bad this stuff is.
Well, I can add one.
Got one?
My daughter at her middle school saw one last week after school.
After school fight?
Yeah, by the track before a football game, and she said that one of the dads broke it up. So, dad club, we need to get the dad club going after school, I guess.
Father's club, right?
Father's club, that's it.
That's what we got to get going. So, how old were the boys?
6th or 7th grade.
All right, that's when fights start happening with boys.
Uh-huh.
Listen, we've all seen fights around that age between boys after school. It's nothing new. But what is new, or what I think is getting worse, anecdotally speaking, is the fights in the classrooms where suddenly teachers are in the middle of it, and they're getting more violent, and they're getting clocked up the side of the head and having to go on part-time medical leave. That's the part to me that feels like it's getting worse. And that's where you do need strong role models, not just at home, we talk a lot about that, but also in the schools. I had a guy, we'll never forget, 6th grade, he was a history teacher, and he was a BAMF. Look up that acronym on your spare time. Former Marine, and this guy, no one messed with him. And there were some kids who, listen, needed some help. They wanted to pick fights. They were a little rough, and this guy wouldn't have it. Every school needs that person. It's important to have that person that at least you have some male respect for between men. Now, what it means for women, girls, are they fighting more than ever? You seem to hear more reports about it, but I don't know what you do because you can't have males obviously getting involved when females are the ones beating each other up and pulling each other's hair and the whole thing. But it just goes to show you that right now it looks like this is a major problem happening. On the text line, Pete, give teachers lots of the big old bear spray cans, problem solved. I don't know if that's the answer, but
it's a start.
It's a start, certainly a start, no doubt about it. I mean, I don't have a better answer, so if that's an answer, fine. But the school also being like, we're not talking about it, it's a student-employee issue. Well, the school is being cowardly, taking that approach. The school would be wise to say, we have a problem, we need help, here's what we can do, but we also need to get the community engaged and the community involved. That would be admirable. But what it seems like is happening is instead, they just want to sweep it all under the rug, right? On the text line, Pete, these school administrators are so arrogant, they don't think they owe us an explanation, even though they're paid by our taxes. Exactly right. I know you've got minors involved, so maybe you can't divulge names and things like that, but you should be able to tell the taxpayer what the heck's going on in the taxpayer-funded schools. That texter is spot on with that. They've got to be able to at least have answers for the public and not say, this is none of your business, it's a private matter. Well, no, technically it's all our business. We fund you guys. You don't exist without us, without the taxpayer, without the private citizen funding you to the point where you can operate the school. So if you've got an issue like this, well, tell us about it. Let us help you. Let the community help you. Maybe there are dads and moms who are willing to volunteer on some level, right, and get more involved. If you're having issues and fights like this break out, no one wants teachers getting their heads blasted in, going on part-time medical leave because they're getting in the middle of fights. Nobody wants that. And here's the thing as well. If you get fights that get that violent in the classroom, inside the school building, that tells me nobody is fearful of the consequences. No one cares. The culture in that school is as such where the inmates are running the asylum. This is not, hey, man, I'll meet you in the field after school, throw a couple of punches and call it a day. This is way worse than that. And that is a crisis at Wyandotte. And it has got to be figured out. And the school taking the approach they're taking is just an embarrassment. And it's got to change. 913-408-7957. Pete, where's the school resource officer at this school? Listen, I agree that's a fair question to ask. But you know as well as I do, if you have one school resource officer and a fight's breaking out, by the time that school resource officer gets there, a couple minutes might have passed, and the fight may be over by then, right? If you're trying to prevent or break something up, where is your resource officer? How quickly can he or she get there? Those are all questions that I don't have an answer to, but definitely needs to be addressed. Pete, I'm an 8th grade teacher, this on the text line, and have taught for the last 20 years in Missouri. It's not just the boys. Girls are the worst at fighting. There are more fights between girls than boys. They are brutal. Wow. Times have changed from when I was in middle school 25 years ago. I'll tell you that right now. I remember boys obviously getting out there and, throw a punch here or there. I don't remember any girls fighting. So if that's the case, I don't know what's going on, but now I got to get my daughter signed up for MMA. That's the lesson here, John.
Get the Y and get that karate thing.
Yeah, one or the other.
Well, I think guys are a little more discreet about it. I imagine it happens. It does with the girls. It's like just instantaneous on the spot. Where guys, dude, I'll check you after football practice or whatever.
Maybe that's
I think that still kind of goes on.
Maybe that's the whole male versus female thing.
But it also gets a little more serious, too, because it may involve weaponry at that point.
No, that's a great point.
Anyway,
yeah,
it's a problem.
And now Mark's running out to his daughter's middle school after the show today to break up any fights that he might see.
Yeah, I'll be a watchman. I'll go out there. I'll stand there. My
Mark,
arms folded and crossed.
I love you, man. But I don't know if you're Mr. Intimidation out there. And I say that with all due respect in the world.
They respect the beard.
That's true.
Their principal has a beard. They'll respect me.
That's a good point. Your beard is intimidating. And as a guy who can't grow a beard like that, you've got your manly card over me when it comes to the beard game. I will absolutely hand that to you, Mark Van Sickle. We are watching in real time. As you just heard at the bottom of the hour on Fox News, Barack Obama put his legacy on the line as much as anybody else. And that is not an overstatement. That is a fact. Barack Obama has now inserted himself full steam ahead into the 2024 election. It took him a while. I thought he might be doing this a few weeks ago, but he is now all in. You saw him and heard him, maybe you didn't, last night in Georgia. As Bruce Springsteen, I love the guy, but as he was wailing through a horrific rendition of Dancing in the Dark, it's horrible. Oh, no! No!
Say you gotta stay hungry.
Okay, I love you, Bruce. I just can't listen to that right now. Obama was also up there showing that he is putting it all on the line for Kamala Harris. Now, for Barack Obama, I'm not sure I'd be hitching myself to that wagon, but he really has no choice. The party, at this point, has no choice. He is still their biggest star all these years later, and it's not even close. And if Barack Obama, who is all in for Kamala Harris, ends up endorsing somebody who ends up losing to Donald Trump, that will be Barack Obama's second loss in 3 tries versus Donald Trump. In 2016, obviously, Obama wanted Hillary to succeed him, did a lot of work with Hillary Clinton to try to get her elected, and it didn't work. In 2020, he got behind Biden, but there really wasn't a lot of campaigning to do because of COVID and everything else. Now he's back, big rallies, all the celebrities, everything else, and he's trying to get his candidate across the finish line against Donald Trump, who he once mocked as somebody who would never be president. So there's a lot on the line for Obama. And we will find out whether or not he's still got that magic touch come November 6th. Now, the problem I see for Barack Obama is that he's going back to the well on some things. It's kind of like an athlete at 38 trying to do things they did at 28, but realizing the body's just not there anymore to do what they tried to do at 28. The moves aren't there like they used to be. You know, you see it all the time when an athlete gets washed up. You're like, man, you're just a half second slow, my man. Whether it's whatever your sport is. I think about it in basketball more than anything else because it's so evident in basketball when a guy loses a step, more so than, say, football or baseball. But it's just, it's evident right now that I don't believe that fastball is there like it used to be. And I'm not being overtly partisan when I say it. It's just, it's not there because it's been the same thing for so long, right? You go back to 2008 and 12 of the last 16 years, for basically my entire adult voting life, Democrats have been in the White House outside of a 4-year stint for Donald Trump. But Barack Obama is going back and railing on the same exact talking points, despite the fact that his preferred candidates, including himself, have held the most powerful positions on the planet for 75% of the last decade and a half. But somehow it feels like things aren't magically fixed, despite the fact that the American people keep giving his people, including himself, power. So here was Obama last night in Georgia on behalf of Kamala Harris and a snippet into what he had to say.
And so my question to you, Georgia, is how is any of that going to help you? We do not need 4 years of a wannabe king, a wannabe dictator running around trying to punish his enemies. That's not what you need in your life. America's ready to turn the page. We are ready for a better story. Georgia, we're ready for a President Kamala Harris.
Turn the page from what? You guys are in power. It really shows when you listen to Obama there how weak the final pitch is. Now, it doesn't mean they can't win. Doesn't mean Kamala Harris is not going to be the next president. She might be. I have no idea what's going to happen. But the pitch is Trump's a dictator, and we've got to turn the page. I don't understand the turn the page line. If Trump was the incumbent, I get it. Like, it makes all the sense in the world. But the party that should be talking about turning the page, the candidate that should be talking about turning the page is Donald Trump. Now, usually when a race is neck and neck down the home stretch, the outsider has the edge. And I believe that's what's going on here. Donald Trump is perceived to be the outsider. I know he's been president, but he's not in power right now. So he's technically the outsider of these two candidates in this race. So now you've got Democrats in part trying to gaslight around this idea like they're not actually in power. Joe Biden has not been president. Kamala Harris has not been his vice president for the last 4 years at this point. So therefore, we're the ones who are going to turn the page. Well, people want to turn the page. They want to turn the page from what they've lived through and experienced in large part over the last 3.5 years. That's what they want to turn the page from. And they should well want to turn the page from that, I will add. So Obama, to me, going to that is a sign of weakness, is not a guy operating from a place of strength. It felt to me in 2016 like Obama was operating from a place of strength. No one thought Trump could win. And in 2020, with everything going on in the world, summer of love, George Floyd, COVID, Trump was behind the 8 ball. The polling showed him way behind the 8 ball. He almost pulled it out. And Obama, who didn't have a huge presence then just because of the state of the world, was able to lean on his former VP and help Joe Biden finish it off. But if he loses this one here, what does that say? How does that impact his legacy? if history tells it correctly, which is always debatable. But if history tells it correctly, Obama's going to be in a place where, yes, he was a historic figure. You can't take that away from him. But also, he went back to the well one too many times. And he did an awful job, and this needs to be noted, building a bench for his own party. There is no bench for the Democratic Party. Heck, Quentin Lucas and I have talked about that on the show, and he readily admits there's really no bench, right? Think about it. There were 18, 19 people that ran back in 2020, and they settled on the guy in Joe Biden who they thought basically had the best chance to win a general, and he did. But think about all the people they burned through, Kamala Harris being one of them, who didn't even get to the first primary. You had a guy who was mayor of South Bend, Indiana, 1/5 the size of Kansas City, who ends up being the stars of that primary process. The Beto O'Rourke's of the world. You had the fake Native American Liz Warren. You know, it was just a complete and utter mess. And now where is that bench? The Cory Bookers of the world. They all more or less feel like they flamed out. They don't have a lot of governors who are rock stars because the states have mostly been poorly run. Look at California and Gavin Newsom. I mean, the guy's got a nice smile. I'll give him that. Got a great head of hair. I'll give him that. But those things don't create good economies in well-functioning states. So if there's something you look at in hindsight and you say, where could Obama have made a bigger difference? It would have been building a solid bench for his own party, because that's how they end up having to rely on Joe Biden. And then 4 years later having to be like, what do we do? Oh, boy, we can't have Joe do it again. Fine, we'll put Kamala in. And she was always a weak candidate. Democratic voters didn't like her back in 2019 and 2020. She didn't make the first primary. And now they're doing everything in their power to try to drag her across the finish line.
Do you think Obama would have really wanted a bench? Because he's running the show, right?
Well, here's the
that's
thing.
the way I look at it. I'll be cynical, but I mean.
No, you are right to bring that up, John.
Okay.
He is absolutely the guy who is running the show and wants to run the show. But if he had a stronger bench of his people, it's kind of like, and I'm not comparing this, it's just the first analogy that came to mind. It's like being a mob boss. You want your captains to still be competent. You want them to be your guys, but you want them to be competent. It helps you when you've got competent people below you because they still owe you something. They're still your people. You just want them to be better at the job than she's been. That's all you want.
Well,
and,
certainly that.
I mean, she is nowhere close to the female Obama. It's just night and day. All right, let's go to Jim. He's in KC. Jim, you're on KCMO. What's up, my man?
Hey, I just, your turn the page comment about Obama, not what does he mean? I'll tell you what he means. He means turn the page on the current government of the United States and turn it over to a globalist agenda. There would be nothing more pleasing to a Democrat president, whoever that is, than to stand up at the microphone and say, hey, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is America didn't work out. The good news is we've got a new deal with the World Economic Forum. We're going to be a new country. It's going to be a new world order. That's what their goal is ultimately, Pete. I think many commentators like yourself that are well-meaning, you look at this too micro. You got to be more macro. They have a bigger vision than what they say at the podium. They want America to fail, and they want to move us to a globalist, completely one-world government. That's their ultimate goal. Do you see that?
I see elements of that. I mean, I don't think, what I'll say, Jim, is I don't think that the United States, they want the United States to just become this, happy-go-lucky, go along to get along, join with the EU kind of a setup. I mean, we've got alliances. We've got things like NATO. I mean, those things obviously are valuable and matter. But I have to give a little more thought to what exactly Obama's goal is. I mean, I think power is the goal, right? Political power is absolutely the goal. But I will give that more thought. I don't think it's a bad point. I don't. 913-408-7957. Josh Hawley's going to be here at 8:35. He is the U.S. Senate candidate who has not shot a reporter this week. So we'll look forward to that conversation with him. And we'll get to you as well. 913-408-7957. Pete Mundo at 7:46 on a Friday on KCMO. Babylon Bee's having a field day with Missouri politics over the last 24 hours. Ever since Lucas Kunce, the Democrat running against Josh Hawley, appears to have accidentally shot a Woke 41 reporter in the arm. He's okay. Don't worry, so we can have fun with it now. He's going to be all right. He's going to be more than okay. I don't know if it was shrapnel or what exactly happened, but if you haven't seen the video or if you haven't seen the story, Lucas Kunce, Democrat running versus Josh Hawley, is up at a gun range in Holt. And, I don't know what's going on. He's up there with Adam Kinzinger, of all people, the former Illinois congressman who did a complete 180. He's up there, and they're shooting their big guns, and they're shooting what looks like metal cans from 10 yards away, if that. I don't know, maybe 5 yards. And either a piece of debris or shrapnel or something ends up hitting this Woke 41 reporter in the arm. The guy's bleeding out of the arm, and Lucas Kunce ends up helping the guy. I'm glad he helped him. But the guy had to go to a hospital, and he was deemed okay after getting hit in the arm. So headline here from the Babylon Bee, Dick Cheney excitedly joins Democrat Party after hearing they get to shoot people at gun ranges. Babylon Bee, satirical website, in case you don't know, writes here, former Vice President Dick Cheney excitedly joined the Democrat Party today after seeing the Democrats are allowed to shoot humans at their local gun range. Cheney announced the move after learning that Missouri Senate candidate Lucas Kunce headed to a gun range, shot a man, and then took photos with the human that he nailed. Cheney said happily, loading his rifle, I can't believe I've been missing out on this. Boy, do I love shooting humans. Looks like that Missouri fella shot his human in the arm. I'm more of a shoot him in the face kind of guy, but to each his own. Sign me up. Oh, man. The entire Cheney family has decided to move to the Democrat Party, although Liz Cheney has adamantly stated it's not because she likes shooting people. Don't get me wrong, the former congresswoman said. Shooting people is a perk. I'm joining the Democrats because I was forcefully ejected from the Republican Party for being awful. So I guess it's a little bit different. At publishing time, former Vice President Cheney has asked a photographer to accompany him to the gun range so he could get a professional picture of whatever human he ended up bagging. Oh, my gosh. And, jeez. Oh, man. Babylon Bee, one of their owners or founders, Seth Dillon, was here with Kansans for Life this year for their big annual banquet and did an outstanding job. And anytime I go over there, I just find myself having a good laugh. I wish I could say I was having a good laugh when I was watching the District 3 debate last night on Kansas City PBS. You don't get to see 3rd Congressional District Congresswoman Sharice Davids do much when it comes to media. They're very good at hiding her, and for obvious reasons. But, man, I'm watching last night, and I'm just thinking to myself, with Sharice Davids going up against this guy, Dr. Prasanth Reddy, is this the best we can do? That's what I'm thinking about. Now, she's probably going to win. I mean, if I'm handicapping this thing, she's a solid favorite in this race in the 3rd District. Her handlers are very smart. They put her out there once in a while. She does a debate maybe every cycle. Never more than maybe 1 or 2. She's done 1. This is the first time she's gone up on that stage with Dr. Reddy. But I listened to the Open yesterday, and I thought to myself, man, regardless of politics, is this the best we got?
You've been in, for the last 2 years, what have you done for us? And what are you going to do for us if you're reelected in November? You have 60 seconds.
Well, thank you. I'm Sharice Davids, and I'm proud to serve as your representative in Congress. You know, my brothers and I were raised by my mom. I worked my way from Johnson County Community College to Cornell for law school and served in the White House. And when I was growing up, Kansans came together to solve tough problems. And the tough problems are what I focused on, like finally giving Medicare the right to bring down drug costs and creating jobs while reducing inflation and protecting our democracy and our rights. You know, my opponent has different ideas. He has aligned himself with extremists who want to cut Social Security and Medicare, want a national ban on abortion with no exceptions, and he's even opposed bringing down prescription drug costs while taking money from big pharma companies. And the The 3rd District wants something different than that. The 3rd District wants someone who's going to work across the aisle to get things done for this district. My record is clear on that. I'll always work with anyone. My name's Sharice Davidson. I'd be proud to earn your vote.
Okay. All right. Listen, I know that there are many people, probably the majority of Johnson County, will vote for Congresswoman Davids. And she has been a good sport once coming on this show after I had to do a naked lap because she won by 12 points. But when you actually look at the record, which is much further left than she likes to admit, and when you actually look at the ability to be omnipresent in the district and be around and be active. I know she's got a good staff. People tell me she's got a good staff that is able to get back to people with some regularity. That's all well and good. But man, can I get a little more juice out of you? A little more? Can we drop the platitudes just for a hot minute? Just a little more substance, please. But I suppose when you vote for things like the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan, there's only so much you can do. So Dr. Eddie's got himself an uphill battle. We'll see how it plays out. You can go watch that on YouTube on the Kansas City PBS page.